Hello, everyone, and welcome to a WarCraft Rumble talent review for the Alliance Minis. As some of you guys are probably aware, the first talent you choose for your minis is incredibly important. The first talent you're able to select for a mini only costs 3 stars to unlock that talent slot, and once you choose it, well, you're pretty much stuck with that one particular talent unless you want to remove it until you unlock another talent slot which costs 10 stars. So for all of you guys doing the quick math, it costs a rare core and 900 gold to unlock that second talent slot, making, well, your first choice that much more important. So for all of you guys out there who are wondering which talents I think are the best, since I have been in the closed alpha and now get to see a little bit more as other people are playing, what my thoughts are on all of these talents. I'm only going to be going over Alliance. If you want to see some of the other factions and I haven't released a video yet, leave a comment below and leave a like on the video and I will make my way through them. Now, first things first, Jaina Proudmoore. The 3 talent choices are Blink, Clear Casting, and Flurry. Now, because of Jane Proudmoore's passive ability, which increases the level of all the spells you play by 2, I believe Blink is by far the best ability overall. You're able to teleport back. Jaina already has a great ability that allows you to apply slow, that cold effect, to units so they attack a little bit slower. Blinking away from attackers gives her a new chance on life, and if you have a way to heal her, say with the Holy Nova or the Shaman or some other healer in the game that may be released further down the line, Skeleton Party also being another healer, then, well, you can get her back up to full. Blink by far is what I think the best. If you're trying to do a little bit more crowd control, Flurry does work. Clear Casting also works as well, but I think like I would give Blink an A, and Clear Casting like a B minus, and Flurry a solid B. Flurry, you're able to, well, frost all of the enemies near the target. It doesn't say it actually deals damage. It doesn't make her ability AoE. It just applies that frosting ability to multiple units so they attack a little bit slower. Clear Casting doesn't work with Jaina. Jaina's Arcane Blast, and I think Arcane Blast is the best ability or best spell overall. I'll get to that later in this video. Moving right along, we have Tyrion Fordring. And I gotta believe Divine Shield is by far head and shoulders above everything else here. Consecrate and By the Light. Now, Divine Shield, what it essentially does is it's a one-time activation that allows your Tyrion Fordring to heal up a little bit more. That normally translates to 1 to 2 more heals, but it also buys you time to set up a second Tyrion Fordring to come alongside him. When you're doing those pushes in the PvP campaign, I am often stunned and amazed how strong 2 or 3 Tyrion Fordrings stacked together are, as they're just constantly healing each other. AoE doesn't get through, and you can have all of these supporting units in the back with 3 strong tanks in the front. Consecrate, if you're playing Tyrion Fordring to try and deal damage, he's almost trying to be a jack of all trades at that point. By the Light does work well. It heals the primary target for twice as much, but you often get into quote-unquote overheal situations. Many of the minis in the game, after 2 shots, they're already dead, but after 1 shot, healing them twice as much just overheals, and it doesn't help nearly as much. It only helps healing tanks, large tanks like the Abomination or the Molten Giant. It doesn't even work well with the Footman, the tank of the human army, as they are a squadron of tanks where you want all of them to be healed equally as much. So yeah, Divine Shield by and far my favorite for Tyrion Fordring. You will notice that I am missing one final hero. I believe it's Shadow Song. It's the Warden or the Night Elf hero. I haven't unlocked her yet. I'm trying not to drop tons and tons of real world money to unlock everything. Anyways, going on, some of these I am going to be making the decision on the fly. So, Harvest Golem, Trojan Chickens, Unstable Core, or Bountiful Harvest. Now, all three of those abilities I've seen being used. Trojan chickens actually, in the games I've seen, actually spawns 8 chickens because the harvest golem does technically die twice. Unstable core, however, is just a really, really powerful ability. I like the unstable core because it stuns enemy units for 3 seconds, meaning that the harvest golem will most likely become the target again. What you don't want is your tank to get taken out and then have the attackers move on to a new target. By moving on to a new target, that tank is no longer tanking that front line nearly as much. Finally, Bountiful Harvest. On death, apply a heal over time effect to nearby allies. Well, the nearby allies, if you're playing the game properly, your other nearby allies, we're talking about the tank here that's in the front line. There shouldn't be that many other tanks in that frontline spot. You should be having damage units further behind here. Am I saying Bountiful Harvest is bad? No, I'm saying that you have to build your deck specifically around Bountiful Harvest for it to work, as opposed to, say, the high utility of Unstable Core. So, Unstable Core, my choice for the Harvest Golem. Moving on to the Huntresses, Darnashian Steel, Elven Might, or Shadow Meld. This is one of the first where I actually like I actually like all three. The Darnashian Steel, probably the weakest one, as you're not always going to guarantee to attack against a large squadron of units. If you're going up against six other targets, right? If you're playing PvE and you know that there's going to be swarms of chickens or swarms of murlocs, then yes, Darnashian Steel works. But as your first talent, I would rather go for Elven Might or Shadow Meld. Shadow Meld works particularly well because she gains stealth, and that initial ambush attack is often more than enough than you need. The Elven Might is what really, really kicks in after the third or fourth attack. If you're going up against a large abomination, a molten giant, something to that effect, Shadow Meld, the Huntress can often re-engage and regain stealth, and that initial attack and move on is better. There's a case for both. However, whatever you choose between Elven Might and Shadow Meld, know how to play to that particular style, knowing that ambush is going to work with stealth, or you are going to choose to try and take down larger hit point units with that Huntress. Moving right along, Griffin Rider, Airdrop, Odin's Fury, and Mighty Throw. All right. Well, the Griffin Rider has a little bit of a downside in that it is a bit of a glass cannon. It dies and it falls apart very, very quickly. So I don't like Odin's Fury for that. It's very rare that it's going to be able to stand tall and be able to do sustained damage. There's so much AoE, there's so many ways to target right behind it, and because it is so so fragile, it doesn't have the ability to really get enough attacks off to actually have Fury. For you guys who don't know, Fury, the longer a unit attacks while standing, or I guess in this case, flying in place, the faster the attack rate becomes. Every time you move, it resets, and you have to build up to that faster attack speed. Between these other two, Airdrop or Mighty Throw, both of them are fairly good. I personally like leveling up other units if possible. That airdrop gives 10% additional hit points and also 10% additional damage. That's what every level translates to. So if you're able to drop two or three of those little presents to upgrade, it translates into a very, very big difference. Perhaps one-shotting a unit instead of two-shotting, or more likely the case, two-shotting a unit instead of three-shotting. That becomes a big difference there. However, Mighty Throw allows you to place down the Griffin and actually be able to challenge some of the actual ground units, being able to take them down or trade them much more efficient, trade against them much more efficiently if you just need to get that one attack off. That +3 range does add up. Moving right along, and Defias Bandits is perhaps one of my favorite cards, both for PvP and PvE. If you guys haven't checked out my video on things I wish I knew, well, I go deeply into Defias Bandits, and I guess I'll go into it again now. The big thing that I like here is Picklock. Picklock may seem like a strange choice, but getting that extra 2 gold when opening chests just becomes a giant gold generation technique. The fact that the Defias Bandits can net you 3 gold after being placed down allows you to use Arcane Blast much more efficiently and to cycle through your deck very fast. My follow-up would then be Last Resort. Actually, Deadly Poison. Last Resort, you gain poison, you're just going to be dealing damage faster, but you then also want to couple it with Smoke Bomb. And now, if you've already have 2 of your minis coupled together, then you're trying to build a specific deck. Picklock seems to work for everything fairly well. Last Resort, another stun on death for 3 seconds. It's very good at trying to take out tanks that are attempting to finish off your tower. You're able to place them down. It stuns, and then when the target wakes up, it then tries to attack. It could then get stunned again, and then finally for 3 seconds, and then perhaps get stunned one more time by the other Defias Bandit if the tank or melee unit, that frontline unit, doesn't have any sort of AoE. So yeah, Picklock first, Last Resort, or Deadly Poison second, and then Last Resort, a very close third between those 3 talents there. Finally, Arcane, or not finally, there's a couple of spells. Arcane Blast. All right. For me, it has to be Torrent. Torrent. As the game goes long, every time you are able to cast that level 4 rank Arcane Blast, it means that the next round of Arcane Blasts are just going to be that much more powerful. Yes, you do have to design decks that have a large influx of gold, or want you to be playing large number of spells. Bludge Mage Thalnos, Jaina Proudmoore, I'm looking at you for the spell side. Large amounts of gold, I'm looking at you, Defias Bandit, and Sneed. Any way you're able to translate gold spent earlier in the game to a stronger spell later in the game is always a good thing. Amplification, sequential tap increase, grows larger and larger. That size does become very large later in the game, and that level 4 Arcane Blast does do large amounts of damage. However, in the most recent games I've played, I haven't felt that I need the radius that much larger. I'm usually targeting the final tower or the final boss by that stage in the game, and I'm timing those Arcane Blasts with when units are being summoned. Placing on a level 3 or level 4 Arcane Blast right as a Blackrock Pyromancer, a group of Footmen are summoned, or anything like that, and all of them getting hit by a level 4 Arcane Blast just turns into a positive gold trade as I spend 4 and maybe neutralize my opponent's 4 while dealing a large amount of damage to the opposing tower. We do have the Mountaineer now. There's Frenzied Spirit, Mend Pets, and Intimidation. in terms of all three abilities, I gotta go with Intimidation. The bear gaining taunt is absolutely huge. Being able to pull aggro away from that rifleman mountaineer to get that bear to absorb some of that damage. The other two abilities, Frenzied Spirit, I gotta give probably like a C minus. The Mountaineer combination between the bear and that rifleman together is what makes it strong. You want to continue to push with both in order to deal large amounts of damage. Once you lose one or the other, it just feels significantly weaker. So you don't want Frenzied Spirit to proc. It's almost like, hey, you're losing, but here we're just going to throw you a bone. Meanwhile, Men Pets only works well when obviously it's paired in a beast deck. So, well, if you are trying to build a beast deck and you need a healer, that rifleman does definitely help, but it's not as versatile as Intimidation. Moving along, everyone's safe pilot. And for me, it has to be the Gnomish cloaking device. You deploy from the explosion with stealth and ambush, meaning the safe pilot is gonna get at least 2 points of damage off. The crash landing dealing large amounts of AoE damage, and then finally that very, very first shot coming in from the safe pilot. And you can often time the safe pilot with other unbound units as well. The safe pilot does take a little bit of time to crash land and then get that first shot off to break that stealth. And during that time, if you gain 1 or 2 gold, you can definitely play some other 2-cost unbound unit to absorb some of that damage, so your safe pilot has more opportunities to continue firing for that large elemental AoE damage. Coming in hot and Gnomish Muttonizer, both of those are okay. I just don't think it stands anywhere compared to the Gnomish cloaking device. Going right along to the Worgen, you have Lone Wolf, Premeditation, and Frenzy. Obviously, this is one of those situations where all three of them can be very useful. It is up to you which one you want. And whichever one you choose, it's going to change your playstyle a little bit. Lone Wolf being able to refund back a little bit of gold is nice, but that also means that you're not going to be placing it down and trying to take down ranged units. There's no benefit there when, say, the tanks are fighting each other. So Lone Wolf, generally best in that one first cast spot or just trying to snipe down one particular unit. I like Premeditation perhaps the best out of the three. Getting a little bit of additional ambush damage can mean only one attack instead of 2 to finish off a unit, which allows the Worgen to then cycle back, go back into stealth, and perhaps ambush again. Finally, Frenzy. When you kill something, kill more things. Just trying to build up momentum. Bloodlust, allowing the Worgen to attack a little bit faster, perhaps even walk faster, and engage in another ambush again. All right, Footman. You get Shield Bash, Fortification, and Last Stand. This is going to be a coin flip for me between Shield Bash and Fortification. Last Stand, I already feel like once you've gotten down to one final Footman, it just needs to be cleaned up off the board. Very rarely is that last Footman going to have a large amount of hit points to where that armor increase from 50 to 75% makes that big of a difference. Or your opponent doesn't have elemental minis that are able to deal full damage and completely bypass that armor. Shield Bash and Fortification, both very useful. Because the Footmen come in a squadron of 4, you're able to often stun lock a target with Shield Bash if they're all going after the same thing. Meanwhile, Fortification, essentially giving 30% extra empty health, allowing Uther or some other healer to heal even more. And Well, that extra 30 health translates to extra 3 levels, essentially, in terms of hit points if you can get it healed. But once again, once you are going in for fortification, you're building a very specific kind of deck, and it isn't as useful for all of the other decks as Shield Bash is. And I think Blizzard is going to be my last one. I'll have to double check here. So we have Cold Snap, Ice Crown, and Brittle Ice. For me, I would have to say Cold Snap is by far the way to go. If you can cold snap enemy units as they're trying to dive on your tower, you can keep them out of melee range or keep them out of range to buy yourself a little bit of hit points while dealing damage back. Ice Crown is one of those situations where, hey, you can protect your base while attacking another one out there, and that is very good for those late game scenarios in PvP where the clock is ticking down and both sides are taking timed damage to see who's going to fall first. You're able to defend your base while putting damage onto your opponents, but that's in a situation where you could have perhaps built a bigger lead off of Cold Snap in the first place. Finally, moving on to Brittle Ice, enemies within take 30% additional damage from physical sources. That is very useful, but it's almost one of those situations where Cold Snap would perhaps be just as useful as well. If you're able to freeze your opponent's targets, well, their melee units are not going to be engaging, and they're not even walking towards your units, so they perhaps could be taking 20 to 30% additional damage that they wouldn't normally take from other sources, and it also helps with elemental damage, not just physical. And I think, is that it? Nope, I got, well, Holy Nova. All right, talents, Holy Nova. You have Inner Fire, Renew, and Amplify Magic. Amplify Magic effects are doubled on all elemental minis, meaning, hey, all of your elemental minis heal for even more. Inner Fire, affected allies gain armored and resist or renew. Personally, I personally like Inner Fire or Renew. Inner Fire works extremely well in situations where your army's in the thick of things and they need that additional protection. It's very difficult to take down a unit that has both armor and has resistance. I've designed a couple of decks around that particular strategy and with healing, and they're just able to march on through fairly often. So yeah, Inner Fire perhaps the way to go. Renew also heals a little bit of over time, also very useful. Amplify Magic perhaps a distant third. Let me know if you guys agree with my talent rankings for each of the Alliance minis. If you agree, disagree, or what other things have you learned or things that I have not thought of in my 9 months of playing this addictive, fun, casual game. All right. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Hope you, hear the sound of my voice again. And until next time.